Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and tonight I'm going to run the lottery for the 3 affordable single-family homes at Greystone Village in Kingston. So I'll get the lottery underway in just a few moments. Just a few things to start off. If you have any questions during this session, you're encouraged to either ask them by typing into the chat feature in Zoom, or you can unmute yourself, because when you came into this meeting, you were muted, just to make sure that there's no outside noise during the presentation, because this is a recorded drawing. So if you need to, or if you're watching this after the fact, you're able to view this on SEB Housing's YouTube channel later on tonight. So just to give you some background information on who applied for this lottery. All of this information, I should say, is going to be given to you in a handout that is attached to an email that you'll get later on tonight with the waiting list. So all this information will be at hand for you, but also wanted to mention that any households who have been approved for this lottery should already have their lottery application number. So for this lottery, it's in the form of a series of numbers, and in this case, it's between A.001 and A.017. If you don't have that, or if you forgot it, it should have been in an email, but if you don't have it, that is what's going to be referenced tonight when the drawings take place. So you can let me know in a message if you don't have that number, and I can look it up for you. So there's 3 affordable units, homes, in this lottery. There were 17 completed applications, so there's going to be 17 households in the lottery. One of those homes is a 4-bedroom single family, and there were 7 applicants for that 4-bedroom. 3 of those applicants for the 4-bedroom are type 4 households, 3 are type 3 households, and 1 is a type 1 household. I'll explain that in just a second as well. There's also 2 3-bedroom homes, and there were 9 type 4 households, 4 type 2 households, and 1 type 1 household. So back when you completed your lottery application, you indicated, and SEB Housing confirmed for you what your household type was, either 1, 2, 3, or 4. So that's dependent on the members in your household and a couple of other factors. So keep in mind that for this lottery, for the 4-bedroom home, type 4 households have priority over all other household types. And for 3-bedroom homes, type 3 and 4 households have the same priority as one another above the type 2 and type 1 households. So the reason behind that kind of priority on the waiting list is because the affordable housing program is designed so that households don't have priority for units with more bedrooms than their family might actually require. So it's just a programmatic rule that that is the way the waiting lists are prioritized. There's also local preference or priority for 2 of the affordable homes. So if you answered yes to the local preference question on the lottery application, your lottery eligibility email from SEB Housing should have had confirmation that you applied for local preference. So when the drawing takes place tonight, because of these different priorities, household type and local preference, you're not going to know for certain exactly where you fall on the waiting list, even if you're drawn first in the lottery. First, I need to sort the results onto the waiting list according to household size and local preference in order to compile those waiting lists. So you'll get an email from me later on tonight that has the waiting list attached, and you'll know at that point where you fall on the waiting list and whether or not you will be called forward to move forward in the process to purchase one of these homes. So there's going to be 2 lottery drawings tonight. I will be using the website random.org to complete the drawing. I'll screen share with you so you can see the drawing take place. First, there will be the local preference drawing, and that's going to include households, again, who indicated that they either live in Kingston or work full-time or have a child going to school within the town of Kingston. I'll insert the application numbers for those 2 local preference households into the list randomizer function, and that will be on random.org. You'll be able to see the list generated digitally in random order, And next will be after the local preference drawing will be the general drawing. So all 17 households will be included in that drawing, and it'll be the same thing. I'll just do 2 drawings, 1 local preference to get the order of priority for local preference households, and then the general list will be the priority list for everyone else. Again, the randomization of the drawing is going to be instantaneous, so you're going to see the results on the screen right away. You'll see what your lottery number is, and like I said, I'll be sharing the screen so you can see it. Just a reminder again, though, that those lottery results that you see on your screen are not going to be the waiting list yet, because I still need to sort them. So sometimes there's some confusion during the lottery because you don't exactly know during this call whether or not you're one of the top households in the drawing, because we still have some work to do in the back end for that. And a quick note too, for this drawing specifically, before the local preference drawing, so I actually need to do a preliminary local preference minority drawing that I'm going to start out with. And the reason for that drawing is because according to the Affordable Housing Program rules, the number of minority households in the local preference pool has to be at least as high as the Census Bureau's percentage of minorities for the area. So in this case, Kingston still falls under the Boston area percentage. And so the minority percentage, that this comes out every 5 years or so from the census, is 33.4%. There was only 2 local preference households in this lottery. None of them, so 0 of them, indicated on their lottery application that they were a part of a minority group. So since obviously 0% of 2 is lower than the required 33.4%, that's why I need to start out with a minority drawing. So what that means is there was a total of 10 households who identified themselves as belonging to a minority group for this for this lottery. And so the lottery numbers of those 10 minority households are not already part of the local preference pool, but they're going to be randomized in a preliminary drawing. And the top 2 lottery application numbers will be selected and added to the local preference pool. And that will make a total of 2 of the 4 local preference households, which represents 50% of that local preference pool, to get us to the threshold that we need for this drawing. So when I do the actual local preference drawing, you're going to see 4 households in there rather than the 2 that I just mentioned that are local preference. So we are, abiding by the program rules. So I recognize all of that sounds very confusing, but again, these drawings are just a requirement for us to be able to properly sort the results from tonight's drawing. All right, so the order, I'm going to share the screen now actually, just to give you a demonstration of how this is going to work. I'm going to just open the internet, go to random.org and show you what this website looks like so that you can see how the drawing is going to take place. And any of you who have signed in on your computer should be able to see my screen share right about now. So this is just a very basic looking website called random.org. I'm going to scroll down to list randomizer. This is what we use for our lotteries, and this is what other agencies use as well. So when the time comes, I'm going to be putting the lottery application numbers into this box so it can be randomized. It's going to be 8.001 and all of that. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to click randomize, and you're going to see that it spit back out a random order of those 5 numbers that I placed in there. So that's how this drawing is going to take place. So the 1 through 5 now is randomized here just for demonstration purposes to show you how the lottery drawings are going to work. So I'm going to X out of this now, but you're going to see this screen again in just a few moments when I do the actual drawing for Greystone. So once the lottery results from tonight are generated, those results allow us to properly sort the drawing into the actual waiting list. So there's 3 waiting lists for these homes. There's 2 3-bedroom waiting lists, 1 local preference, 1 non-local preference, and there's a 4-bedroom waiting list as well. So after the lottery, I keep mentioning that email that you're going to get. It's going to be later on tonight, and it's going to have a copy of the waiting list attached to it as a PDF. And you'll be able to see where your lottery number is positioned relative to the other households on the waiting list. You're going to see that the top households on the waiting list are highlighted in green, and that's because those are the households that will be invited to immediately move forward in the process and submit their income, asset, and tax documentation to SCB Housing. When you entered the lottery, you self-reported your income on the lottery application. You also provided your mortgage pre-approval, but you haven't submitted your pay stubs or anything like that for us to verify your income. So that's the next step in the process. So we're going to be inviting, SCB Housing is going to be inviting a total of 12 applicants forward. So that's going to be 8 from the 3-bedroom waiting list and 4 from the 4-bedroom waiting list. And those 12 applicants, after tonight, you're going to get an email tomorrow, a separate email, inviting you to submit your supporting documentation. So you might wonder, there's only 3 homes. Why would we invite 12 applicants forward to move forward to purchasing the home? So that's just because we want to be sure that the process isn't delayed by us screening only the top 3 households from each waiting list, or top 1 household, I guess, from each waiting list, a total of 3. It is possible that the top households on each waiting list will provide us with the necessary documentation, that we found eligible and be able to purchase the home. If that ends up being the case, there's going to be several households who supplied their income verifications and were potentially found eligible for the affordable housing program, but those people who are further down the list will not have the opportunity to purchase a home. So it's rare, but it does happen. Usually we need to screen multiple people to be able to have, in the case of ownership properties like this, the home purchased. So there's still a few steps in the process, right? You need to be found to be eligible for the program. You need to get your mortgage approval after having get your mortgage pre-approval, and not everyone makes it through those steps. So if you're not one of the households that's highlighted in green, whose lottery application number is highlighted in green after you receive those waiting list results, you won't be contacted to move forward unless the people ahead of you on the waiting list are drop off the waiting list for whatever reason. Maybe they decided that they no longer want to purchase the home, or they've been denied and don't qualify. You'll have about 10 days if you are one of those households that's highlighted in green. If you have about 10 days or a week to get that information into us. And you were sent a documentation requirements guide back when you received your lottery application number that spells out, how many pay stubs we need from you and all of that. So hopefully you've been able to gather some of that information already, and you'll have that set to go and sent over to us within the week. And again, if you're not one of the top households in green, you can stay tuned. If there's anyone who ahead of you who drops off, we will contact you at a later date. We have been told by the sales team at Greystone Village that one of the 3 bedrooms, in terms of construction, one of the 3 bedrooms is complete, except for the carpet. They'll be doing that before closing. And the construction on the 4-bedroom is expected to be completed within the next 3 weeks. And then that final 3-bedroom home will follow from there. So not too much of a wait from now until potential move-in for any of the buyers. Any questions before I'm going to share my screen again and move on to the actual drawings? I'm going to start with the preliminary minority local preference drawing. Does anyone have any questions on anything I just mentioned? All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. I have a little spreadsheet here that's going to have all of the lottery application numbers that I need. And you can see that on your screen now. So I'm starting with this preliminary minority drawing. The top 2 numbers that are drawn are going to be added to the local preference pool for the reasons that I just explained, even though I know it's a little convoluted. but it's a program requirement. So I'm going to go back to random.org. I'm going to go down to list randomizer, and I'm going to now plug in these 10 application numbers that represent the minority households in this lottery. None of these lottery application numbers belong to households who are already on the local preference list, since there was no minority households on that list. So I have 10 numbers in here. I'm going to click randomize, and this is just that preliminary drawing here. So I'm going to place the order drawn here. And just bear with me for 1 second while I make this a little easier to read for everyone. I'm going to do the same thing with the other drawings as well. And so it's going to be these top 2 households here that are added to the local preference drawing. So I'm going to highlight them here to remind myself. So A.001 and A.011 are going to be added to this list here. So I've taken the top 2 from here, and those are now going to be on the local preference list. So now I'm going to do the local preference drawing. I'm going to go back just to exit out completely and go to the local preference list. These are the 4 current local preference households. And this is the local preference drawing for Greystone, Village, and Kingston. And I'm going to take this order here and put it over here on my spreadsheet. And for anyone who's either on the phone or can't see this very well, I am going to go back after I do all 3 of the drawings to make sure that everyone is able to see the results. So this was the local preference drawing for the local preference homes. That is the order of priority for local preference households. I should mention, though, that everyone who applied for a 4-bedroom and everyone who applied for a 3-bedroom is going to have a position on the local preference list for the home that they applied for. Or if you applied for both a 3 and a 4, you'll be on both lists, even if you don't have local preference. So it's a little confusing. You just have a lower priority on the local preference list if you're not a household who has local preference. I'll bring up the waiting list page from the info packet so you can see that in a little more clarity in just a minute. All right, so now on to the general drawing. This is going to include everyone who applied for, let me click out of this first, everyone who applied for this lottery. So I'm going to go back again to list randomizer, and this is the 3rd and final drawing for tonight. So this is the general drawing, which includes everyone, all 17 households who applied and were approved for this lottery for Greystone, Village, and Kingston. And that is the order. I'm going to go ahead and copy this as well. Bear with me 1 moment. And I'm going to scroll down so everyone can see the results here. If anyone can't see it or has called in that would like me to look it up, look your number up, I can do that. But this is the general drawing. That's the lottery order for the general drawing. So 17 was drawn first, and then it goes down from there. I'm going to go into show everyone the order that I'm going to now be sorting these results onto the waiting list, and I'll show you the order of priority so that I can kind of, hopefully this helps you visualize what I was just talking about in terms of the waiting list. So if you applied for a 1-bedroom home, this is the order of priority. If you're a local preference household who's also type 4 and you applied for a 4-bedroom, you're going to be near the top of the waiting list. And then it goes down from there. If you're a non-local preference type 4 household, you still have priority on the local preference waiting list, over anyone who's not a type 4 on the 4-bedroom. So, and then you can take a look at this. This is page 14 of the information packet, but this is how the results of the lottery that was just run for Greystone will play out on the waiting list. All right, so to go back to the results, here's the results from the general drawing. Again, this is the local results here, these 4 numbers. Hopefully that fits on your screen and everybody can see that. Can anybody not see it or wants me to look up their number for them? You can pop your local lottery application number into the chat if so. And if not, then I will get working on sorting the results onto the waiting list, and you can look out for an email from me from info@SDB Housing tonight, because that is the email address that you will come from. And we'll have the waiting list attached, 3 waiting lists, and the info about who applied, kind of giving you a breakdown of all the information I gave at the top of the meeting. All right, if there's no questions, stay tuned. I will be reaching out later on tonight with the final results from tonight's drawing with the waiting list. Good night, everyone.